I'm ready to move on to the next stage of the build, and I thought what I'd do is pull together the audio input circuitry, which is right here, and the audio output circuitry to the ESP32-A1S, and just confirm with some simple test programs that everything is going fine, that I can ingest audio, that I can emit audio before moving on to the radio section. So let's move now to the board, and let's see where that circuitry is. Okay, so the audio input to the ESP32A1S comes through these two lines here. This is a pair of 1 microfarad SMD capacitors here. So there's the input lines. The output lines are this pair of lines right here, and that passes first through a 22 microfarad electrolytic capacitor, and then this simple arrangement here of a 330 ohm resistor and a 0.1 microfarad capacitor, which forms a very simple low-pass filter. And then finally, it comes out through to this audio jack right here, which I'll also get installed just so I've got a nice clean connection on the output side. So I'll pull all this together, and then we'll be able to run some tests with the Arduino Audio Tools toolkit, and so I'll come right back and we'll have a look at that. Okay, so there's the capacitors and resistor in the input and output audio installed. I actually couldn't find any 22 microfarad capacitors of this size, so I had to use 10 microfarad. So anyway, we'll see how that goes. I'm hoping it shouldn't have any deleterious effect. But anyway, what I'll do now is I'll basically get some of those test programs going and make sure we have input and output. Okay, so we're ready to test some simple output here. I'll flash the program. The test setup is I've got the output going to my speakers, and I did do a pretty detailed walkthrough of the Arduino Audio Tools a little while ago, and I'll include a link to that video. But essentially what I'm doing is emitting a 1700 hertz tone at an amplitude of 20,000. So let's get that flashed to the board, and as soon as that's done, we should be able to hear that sound. Bear with me. Of course, it takes a little longer than it should. And there's that 1700 hertz tone. So let me turn it down a little bit. So that confirms that, actually let me unplug it, it's a bit annoying. So that confirms that at least the output side is good. What I'll now move on to is the input side, and I'll just basically put in, temporarily hook up well, let me show you on the board what I'll do rather than talk about it. So like I said before, these two capacitors here are the input side. So I'll just put temporarily solder a stereo jack here, and then I'll send some music or something from my phone to the input here, and then there is another example program that I have that just takes any I2S input and sends it to the I2S output. So I'll be able to test the full audio pathway using that little test program. So anyway, I'll get that hooked up, and then we can move on. Okay, so I've got the input side installed, but one thing I noticed while doing some additional testing is that while this channel works here, this channel does not work. So I'm not sure where the fault is, but I'm going to have to probe around here and see exactly what's causing the problem. I mean, it could be kind of anywhere between the ESP32 and the output. So anyway, I'm going to probe around and we'll see what we see. Okay, it's going to be a bit tough to do behind the camera, but we will try. So let me first probe on the working side, and you should be able to see that. So there we go, we got a good signal there. Now we'll probe on the non-working side, and you can see not a thing. A little bit of a hiccup there, but nothing at all. So probing before this capacitor bank here, so that's the working side, and we've got a good signal there. And then on the non-working side, well, you can see we've got a good signal there too. So it's a little bit attenuated though from the left and the right channels aren't exactly in balance. Not quite sure why that is, but as you can see, if I go before this capacitor here, I've got a signal. Go after the capacitor here, not a thing. So my suspicion is there's something wrong with that capacitor. So I'll get that capacitor replaced and we'll come back. Okay, so I replaced this capacitor here. I did test it out of circuit and there was nothing wrong with it, so I'm not quite sure. Maybe I'd sort of got a bit of solder between the pads and ground or something like that. But anyway, just to confirm, so there's the working channel from before. Here's the non-working channel, so now they're both working. So that's a good thing. We can move on. Okay, so I'm not having much luck today. Got the same problem on the input capacitors. This time, if I probe before this input capacitor here, I get a signal. If I probe after it, nothing. So either this capacitor here is faulty, or I've got some kind of solder bridge going on underneath the capacitor there. So anyway, let me attend to that and get back. Well, the pain deepens. So it wasn't that capacitor. So here's where that capacitor went on the input side. It wasn't that capacitor. Basically, I lifted that capacitor off, and while the ESP module was on here, this pin here was shorted to ground. What I think it was is there's a blob of solder right here, and I'll bet you the pads on this side, and this is the kind of the mic input, which is actually connected to some of the inputs over here. I'm betting that was shorted to ground over here. So anyway, this is a total pain. I'm going to have to resolder this guy on, and hopefully I'm not going to create this blob of solder underneath here. What I might do is actually cut this here so that there's no chance of that blob of solder shorting off to ground. But anyway, it's going to be a total pain getting that back on again. Alrighty. Anyway, I'll come back when I've got it on. Please excuse the banging upstairs. We're getting some work done. Well, that was a total nightmare. I did get the ESP32 correctly installed back on there. I am going to have to sort of redesign the tracks underneath this just to make sure they're well clear of the edge here. But I have confirmed continuity across here, and I don't see any connection problems any longer. I've got that input capacitor on this side put back in. So let's now have a look at some traces on the oscilloscope. So what I'm doing, as I've done many times before, but this is a good little test here. Let me get rid of that light. Sorry, oh, that didn't help at all. So what I'm doing is I'm injecting a signal from my signal generator. That's coming into the I2S in of the ESP32-A1S. And then it's being processed in the ESP, and I'm taking the output on the other side. So what this will confirm is that all the I2S input and output circuitry is correct. So I've got it just with kilohertz on the left and right channel. So let me change the left channel to do 1.001 kilohertz, and you can see there we've got that. And we've got that trace moving appropriately. So if I change it to 2 kilohertz, there we go. You can see that trace there. So that confirms, as I said, that so what we've confirmed so far is the audio I2S in, I2S out, the audio input and output side is all correct. I did go back and confirm that the SI5351 that the ESP talks through I2C is still working, so that's good to go. What I might do is, given you know, I've spent quite a bit of time troubleshooting this, I'm going to take a break and post this video, and then I'll be coming back shortly with the next step, which is pulling together the radio components. So anyway, hope you enjoyed this video. That's all for now. Catch you later.